Hey, this is Joe Prosperi
And Lydia Gwynn.
from Chew in the Lou. Thanks for downloading our podcast. Make sure you check out our website, chewinthelou.org, to find recipes and stories from throughout the St. Louis region and from PBS food chefs. Now on to our episode. So it's the end of the year. It's all coming together. Not everything's coming up roses because it's end of 2021 and we are still dealing with the pandemic. But that is one of the many, many stories that have shaped and codified the food scene in St. Louis this year. Wouldn't you say, Lydia?
I would say it's not ending. The pandemic has been a time of resilience and innovation. And I feel like we're in a place where you wouldn't know that by looking at the St. Louis food scene. Like, we are continuously to keep going. And I think in doing the research, both you and I was just astounded. There were a lot of amazing things happening in St. Louis, a lot of new places opening, a lot of double locations opening. And it makes me excited to know that despite it all, that we have been very resilient.
So let's take our listeners through a recap. Let's talk and here at the end of 2021 as we look forward to 2022. This episode is all about recapping the year that was the St. Louis food scene. So let's start with just kind of the basics. What opened and what closed this year? I mean, obviously lots of things closed, but lots of things also opened. So let's start with the good news. Let's start with the bad news. Let's start with the things we lost. You know, it's just like the Oscars, the in memoriam part. Like, I feel like producer Veronica over there needs to pull out some really sad, sappy music for this part, like a violinist to play underneath this, like they do with the Oscars.
We can play the marquees and a slow fade. If, of course, this was a visual medium, we would have that back and
Yes, we
forth.
would be like, oh, in memory of Calico's downtown, and in memory of Ruma's Deli in St. Charles, and, you know, in memory of Club Taco in Kirkwood. You know, everyone has their places that they lost. Lydia, what did you lose this year?
Well, I lost something near and dear to me, and it would be Jay Green's.
Yes.
Many of fun nights there. It was our place that we went after PTO meetings. It was a place that we went after our school trivia night.
And this is a very personal story to Lydia
Yes.
and I. Living in the Glendale area, Jay Green's, you know, everyone likes to have that neighborhood place that when you have young kids or you need to meet with some friends in the area and you want to go somewhere and just have a drink or grab a bite to eat and you just need that easy place to go to. For us, it was Jay Green's on Manchester and Warson Woods. And it's gone now.
Yeah.
And we are saddened by that because it was just our thing. Like, we both have kids that are the same age, and our kids wanted to meet up there for dinner. And after baseball games with my son, we'd go up there, and his other little first grader baseball teammates would be there with their families, and we'd all eat, but then they'd all go run over to the video games in the corner and want to play video games. And it was just the neighborhood thing for us, which is funny because it was on like Manchester Road, you know, high traffic, but it was easy and the food was good. It was reliable. How many times can you find like an easy, reliable restaurant?
Yeah.
And we lost it this year. We're sad.
It was very sad. I think we all took a couple shots to say goodbye to good old Jay Green's the fairly well. But which was one that went outside of Jay Green's, which was one for you, Joe.
You know, I mean, I'm saddened by the demise of Club Taco and Taco Circus. I think I was enlightened a couple years ago to see tacos become a big thing. You had the rise of Mission Taco, you had Gringo Taco, you had all of these taco restaurants popping up in various areas across town. And I'm wondering if we're starting to see a slight contraction of that with some of these closings. I don't know if we are. You know, you see an explosion now of chicken restaurants out there. I wonder if chicken's the new taco. Maybe. But, you know, that upsets me as a taco aficionado and as a lover of tacos. You know, I had a doormat for a while that said, if you ring my doorbell, you better be bringing tacos. Tacos are what is the meme that's like something about like if you like sometimes I fall apart
and so do tacos and you're still loved or something.
Yes, something like that. Like That really gets to my soul. So whenever I see a taco place go down, it really, really bothers me. Especially one like Club Taco that I felt like did a great job during the pandemic of having igloos outside and trying to make things happen and make things work. I don't know why the business had to close, unfortunately, but those are ones that, as a taco aficionado, like I said, those ones hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I think especially seeing Club Taco and seeing how they really work through the pandemic, like you cheered for them, like, okay, you made it through the hard part. We're able to come back. We're able to do things. And then to kind of see it at the end, it's like, oh. But it was like for me with Taco Circus, I was a little sad because after Taco Week, they announced a couple of places that announced after Taco Week. And I was like, oh, they went out big. They pulled the Seinfeld, right? They went out on the top.
You went out on top.
So yeah, it does. There are a couple of times that you see some places and they just kind of like hurt you just a little bit. And you're like, if I had only gone a couple more times, right? You think that. So.
I know. All right, let's talk about things. Talk about the good.
Yeah. So I got to tell you what I'm excited about is the Bowood by Niche that just opened up in the old Cafe Osage. I love Bowood. I mean, I love that whole facility. I've done some private chef dinners there when it was Cafe Osage. So I was very excited.
Which I was sad when that closed, which was in 2021.
Yes.
So let's go back for a minute. Sad when Cafe Osage closed because it was a great brunch place.
It was.
But excited that it is now Bowood by Niche.
Yes.
Because there's nothing that Gerard Kraft cannot do in the food industry. I mean, come on.
It's true.
When's he going to stop and be like, okay, I think I'm done now?
I'm done. I've done enough, right?
He doesn't have a taco place, though.
He doesn't. Maybe that's...
Challenge Gerard Kraft, taco place.
Maybe that's his Achilles heel.
Maybe. He can do everything else except tacos.
Yes. Uh-oh. I'm throwing out some fire. Well, but what's on your list of the things that excite you?
So there are a couple of things. I mean, let's do a little self-promotion here and talk that it was a big year for beer in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
The release of Unmute Yourself, our 9PBS Four Hands Brewing Company collaboration. So jazzed. I went to Schnucks last week and found it on the shelves.
It's delicious.
I was so excited to see it. I had been waiting and waiting and waiting, and finally, there was the spot on the shelf, and there it was, and it was already, half empty. I was like, oh, somebody already came and already bought it. So people were excited about it. People were drinking it. It's on the shelves. Hopefully it's flying off the shelves. But that was a really great story for us at 9PBS because it was the first time where we worked with our audience and our listeners and our constituents and the people of St. Louis to build that beer and pick the ingredients. So it was, there's nothing more public media than that, than working with the public to design a beer. And it went smashingly. It's delicious. We love it. We love our partners at Four Hands. It was a big story for us.
Yeah. Well, and let's not forget about the Rockwell Beer Garden that opened up.
Speaking of Gerard Kraft, I mean, again, he can do beer. He can do bar food. Can he do tacos? There it is again.
Yeah. Well, and then on the beer scene, also 6 Mile Bridge opened up food in theirs as well. And let's talk about this real quick. So I have to give a shout out to Charlesville Brewing Company. They're one of my favorite craft beers, and they actually announced that they are closing on the day of our release of our podcast. One of the best IPAs, but they have decided to close down. So that's another one of those. When I saw it, I was very sad about.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's sad.
Yeah.
I think I've had a beer there that I like.
Yeah, Tate he was working his way really hard over the pandemic to try to bring people in and keep his beer going, but
Well, other big exciting news on the drink front in St. Louis was narwhals. So everyone's familiar with narwhals. You kind of hear in Midtown, the alcoholic slushies, delicious high-end stuff. They have purchased a parcel of land that everyone's probably familiar with in the Grove, right there at Manchester and Vandeventer, kind of an odd triangle-shaped parcel. And there's an old gas station that sat there, or an old auto shop, something. But they've released plans for this beautiful flagship-looking building that's white with a giant narwhal on top, and they're going to have loaded nachos on the inside as well. And it's so exciting to have something finally anchor the very eastern end of the Grove. The Grove has just come so far in terms of food, offerings, development, buildings popping up all over the place. I mean, I've been going down there. My family grew up down off Boyle Avenue in St. Croix Parish right there, just south of the Grove. And I remember when the Grove, before it really became the Grove, was just a really, really rough part of town. And it's spectacular now and beautiful, and there is so much cool stuff going on. So to see something finally kind of end cap that part off and take that empty parcel of land and just put a stamp there is really exciting to see.
I love it. And another great addition to the Grove for secondary locations would be Serendipity, which is also Serendipity ice cream. But they're moving there, which will be their only location because they're another one of those stories where they closed down their first location in Webster Grove, and now they'll have one in the Grove. And I'm excited for her because it's a bigger location, so Becky will be able to also offer food through her Grove location, more than just ice cream.
And not far from there, Bar K just opened.
If you've got a puppy, if you've got a dog.
If you don't have a dog, I think you can still go.
Yeah. Oh, of course. It's a bar. Go.
Yeah, like go. Like it's a Bar K for dogs, bark, rough. And I haven't been yet with my dogs because we just have a new puppy at home. My older dog we would not take because she is not social and would bark at everybody. But our new puppy, Tony, is a social butterfly and would love it. He just hasn't had his shots yet. So as soon as he is, we're going to Bar K to strut our stuff and drink some beer and play with some other dogs. It's going to be amazing.
So I got a random question.
Yes.
Are there creepy people at dog parks?
Like puppy stalkers?
Yeah.
I can guarantee you there are because I would be a puppy stalker if I didn't have my own dogs to stalk. Surely.
All right. I don't have a puppy. I have a fish. That's the extent of our pets. So if there's a fish park, I'll be there with my bowl.
There's a fish park. I don't think they would do that because I think if you're drinking with your fish, I think there's a high probability that you could drink your fish.
Yeah, fish bowls would not be an option on the menu.
That's rather scary, actually. We've taken a dark
It'd be
turn
like-
here on our podcast. Eating our pets. Gross. All right. Let's see. So big news out of Augusta. I think it's been a fascinating year to hear what's coming out of the Augusta area. So obviously, there's always been wineries out in the Augusta area. And to see all those wineries kind of coming together now under one ownership group who wants to turn all that into kind of the Napa Valley of the Midwest is big news. I mean, that's tons and tons of money being sunk into that community, tons of infrastructure. If you haven't been out there recently, we went out to get our Christmas tree out at Pea Ridge Farms out near Herman, and we drive back up Highway 94, and we stopped at Balducci's. We've been doing it for years. They have great deep dish pizza, by the way, at Balducci's. Fantastic deep dish pizza. And we let the kids kind of run around outside, and we drink some wine, have some deep dish pizza. It's a great holiday thing. But they have added new buildings and new roads, and just they've beautified that vineyard alone. They're doing that at many different vineyards out there. And there's a trolley that can take you from different vineyards and different locations. They're really creating this destination for people to come for Missouri wines, which is really exciting to see. And then you layer in some new food stuff going on in Augusta. So Root Food and Wine is getting a ton of accolade out there for kind of a farm-to-table food movement. I hear so many great things about that. It's like number 3 on my list of food places to go after a couple others I need to get to first. But it is tough to get a reservation. There's amazing things happening out there. So Augusta and kind of that very western flank of the region is really hopping right now.
That's exciting. I'm excited for it. I love a good wine. Let's get Missouri on the map. Every state makes wine, but we have the history of helping France through their wine, disease that they had.
What is the state grape of Missouri?
Norton. The Norton grape.
Yes. And then I think one of the big stories of openings in the St. Louis region this year was the City Foundry.
Yes.
I mean,
long awaited,
definitely needed.
Yes.
I mean, the Cortex Midtown area is booming, and this is kind of the crown jewel from the food scene because it's not just one restaurant opening; it's like 10 or 12 restaurants.
So they opened with 11.
Yeah.
And that was exciting because they have lots of spaces, lots of little kiosks for more to open, and they're now at 14. But I think what's exciting and what I love about it is that it's also created a venue for more events to happen. They had the Black Taste of St. Louis hosted there. That was a huge turnout, great event, a lot of really Black-owned businesses to come out and really showcase what they have to offer St. Louis. And I think there's going to be so much more to come. And I know the Foundry's, just expressed like, hey, we're open. We have more spaces. Please come in. They're wanting to fill it full. So that's exciting.
So let's shift now. We've talked about, what's open and what's closed, but one of the other big stories of the year, really, like we said at the start, has been COVID.
Yeah.
COVID and its impact on the food industry and how we eat. When we started 2021, on January 1, we were still mostly in lockdown. Most restaurants were probably still closed.
If we think about a year back from now, we were still celebrating the holidays, sort of sheltering at home, Thanksgiving, a lot of people cooking their first Thanksgivings in 2020. But, I think we got excited because we got the announcement that, indoor eating could open to 25%. Mm-hmm. And then eventually halfway through in May, they said 50% capacity. And I got to tell you, let's give a big applause to our restaurant community for at every turn of the new protocol, adhering to it and doing what they can to deal with some of the things that have happened that are COVID related. And they've continued to keep going and persevering through all of that stuff. So I think it's amazing to see their hard work and effort to help provide us with amazing food and amazing experiences through it all.
Yeah, great. And what COVID has done, obviously there were still some restaurants that are opened at 50% capacity. Some are fully open. Some have yet to reopen. Some are doing just carry out still. An example of one that just opened is Ben Group's Tempest in the Grove. Somebody with impeccable credentials as a restaurateur and as a chef. Very highly anticipated restaurant. Just a month ago, finally, after doing carryout for almost all of 2021, finally opened up the inside of the restaurant for actual sit-down meals. So it's put a lot of people's plans on hold, delayed a lot of people's plans, and it has left some holes in the food scene. You were sharing, what were the statistics you were sharing about the number of restaurants that we've lost, or the average that we usually lose in a year compared to now?
So looking at, what the National Restaurant Association puts out, like in an average year, normal year, 50,000 restaurants across the nation are usually the average closing, right? So due to the pandemic, it is about 90,000, so almost double of what it normally would be, have closed, either permanently, long-term, or they've temporarily shut down. And I think when you look at that, you can't debate that we've been affected in different ways.
Yeah. And what's interesting about it is, some restaurants have shifted their business model based upon that. And some restaurants, because of their prior success, have taken advantage of some of those holes in the restaurant scene in St. Louis to fill that gap. So you're kind of seeing a lot of successful St. Louis restaurants this year establishing second, third, or fourth locations for the first time, which is really interesting to see. Just where we are in Kirkwood, High Point Drive-In added a location. They added a Sugar Fire location. They added a Chicken Out location. Those are all new outposts. They're all the same parent company, but all within a year, new satellite locations. You've got Clementine's opened a new location in Kirkwood.
That's their fifth one that they've opened up. So, and I think she opened one up during the pandemic as well, her fourth location during that.
Yeah, in Lake St. Louis, I think is where it was. So you start to see, as restaurants are closing, a lot of established restaurants that may have the capital, may have the flexibility, are swooping in and maybe grabbing some of those restaurant spaces and filling them, which is good. I think it's great that our established, successful businesses are growing and showing that. Part of me wonders, are we losing some of the diversity of the St. Louis food scene because of that? But at the same time, they'll fill in other spaces, I think. I think there are ample opportunities and still ample spaces out there for new businesses. Even Jay Green's that we talked about before, that we lost, pour one out for Jay Greens again, someone in the Charlie Gito's family is opening a restaurant there in that space. Again, it's being upcycled. It's every time now when I read something in the newspaper or in a magazine about a new restaurant that's opening, it always is preceded by in the former space of XYZ restaurant.
Yeah.
So there seems to be a rather...
It's not as if these closings are leaving us with a ghost town, right?
Correct.
We're being able to kind of, fill in the space with it. So, and it's interesting to see. And I think, too, with that, when we look at some of these places that are opening, we're seeing some people that are coming from food trucks and are making the pivot into brick and mortar. I think Honeybee's Biscuits just announced that they've got a brick and mortar coming into downtown Kirkwood, which is exciting for them. I mean, they've worked really hard. Their story was, he was a restaurant chef, lost his job during COVID, and started his own food truck, and now here he is at the end of it, running his own ship. So it's exciting.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of that. You've got, those pop-up restaurant people or those food truck people. You've got a couple of years ago, 2017, 2018, you had a slew of those. You had the Balkan Street Boxes, the Gorilla Street Foods, people that started as food trucks that then became brick and mortars. And then it kind of died off a little bit, I think. And now that with the pandemic happening, you have people starting food trucks, starting these pop-up restaurants. And with these opening restaurant spaces, it has allowed them to slide in and establish and place roots somewhere. So like you said, Honeybee's Biscuits recently signed a lease somewhere. We won't say where, even though we know where, which is super exciting. You've got someone like Beats and Bones in Clayton.
Oh my gosh! And they were at they started in farmers markets. They were selling retail. You walk in and see them, and now they actually have their own brick and mortar that you can go to, which is exciting.
Yeah.
You now can take your bottles in and have them recycled, and don't have to wait for the weekend.
You hear so many good things about that place.
Oh, it's so good.
I got to check that out.
Yeah.
You have Fatted Calf, which we've done some stuff with on Chew and the Lou. They don't have a brick and mortar location, but they've gone retail with some of their stuff. You can get some of their longanisa sausage at Schnucks locations across the area.
Yeah.
It's delicious. So you see a lot of these kind of pop-up restaurateurs or food producers in St. Louis taking the next step. And a lot of it is because COVID allowed them to. Some of them COVID forced them to, or they're being entrepreneurial because of the situation we're in. Innovation is the word. Thank you.
Here's the thing for me. When the pandemic was happening, I had someone send me this post, and they were like, during the Black Plague, after the Black Plague was over, we ended up with the Renaissance, right? We ended up in this age of enlightenment. We had all of these great things with machinery come and arts and all of these beautiful, enlightening things happened out of a dark period. And I think that we're seeing that. We're seeing how people have taken the pivot, and they've been forced, and they've been innovative. All of these words we keep saying, but it's so true that, when you are put in a moment of crisis, to see how people react and do with it. And it's exciting because I don't really see a lot of people giving up. I see a lot of people saying, let's charge forward and let's make it better and make it happen how we need to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, I'm excited. A 9 Mile Garden, because we talked about food trucks, and I think that's been a really pivotal point for a lot of people that have had food trucks for a really long time to build a fan base, to make their way into the world of brick and mortar. But, they opened mid-COVID, and then they were able to be a resource for people at 9 Mile Garden. To go out and to have places to go outside, right? To go and engage and still do stuff, have outdoor video, they offer breakfast, they have a whole event calendar. So I think, that's one of those great locations that sadly doesn't get enough credit for the things that they've done for our food community.
Agreed. So, we've talked about what's new, we've talked about what's closed, we've talked about COVID and how things have shifted. What's really great to see too is in 2021, it seemed the eyes of the country really turned to St. Louis when it comes to food. And there were a number of accolades that were given out, a number of spotlights on St. Louis, a number of stories that were done, awards that were given, things that allow us to puff up our chests a little bit and say, you know what, we are not flyover country. There's a reason why some of these magazines and media outlets are saying that, hey, if you're not looking at St. Louis for food stuff right now, you're missing out.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree. I mean, Food and Wine, I think, is slowly starting to have a crush on St. Louis. As I feel like every time it's one of my subscriptions that I read through, and it's a great source. But, they're in love with Nick from Indo, chef.
Nick Bogner.
Yes. Oh, and
I'm
he
in
was
love with Indo and the red curry braised short ribs. Oh my
he has
God.
made all of those things.
Good Lord, it's delicious.
Yeah, but I mean, he was noted as one of their best chefs, and granted, it was in 2020, and he got his accolade and was invited back, was part of their 2021 publications for this year. Clementine's got a shout out for their Blue Moon ice cream, right? And then they also awarded Joya's as the best sandwich of Missouri. So they're slowly seeing and feeling that St. Louis has a lot to offer on the national level. Even New York Times put out a list of the 50 best restaurants in the United States, and Little Fox was one of them that got noted. And I think even on the international level, we have to give a shout out because we had one person here in St. Louis that has been inducted into the International Gin Hall of Fame.
Hot dang.
Only one. She's one of 9 people. She's the only American, and she's here in St. Louis. So if you haven't been to the Gin Room that's down there on South Grand, Natasha Barami is the individual in charge of that. She founded a whole, national concept called Gin World, and she's now being recognized for that on that level. And then let's not forget about the St. Louis showing at the World Food Championship.
That was so fun to follow.
It was.
Oh my gosh, who were we following? I was following Pepe Kim from Pinot in Clayton, and he was there as support for a lot of those chefs, and watching some of the stuff that he posted on social, and him as a cheerleader and support for a lot of those chefs was so great.
It was exciting to see just start to finish because when you kind of hear about the details, it's kind of complicated. It's like the most complicated board game that you could ever play. But our chefs, not only did they show up in multiple categories, but they got themselves, I don't think we had anybody under 11th place. Mm-hmm. We had a world championship bacon chef by Jack McMurray.
Congratulations, Chef Jack Mack.
And then we had some really great placings, and we were the only representation for the state.
And burgers.
And burgers.
And burgers.
Yes.
Yes. The general guys from High Point.
Yes.
Mike Johnson from High Point won Best Burger for the World Food Championships as well.
Yes. So we had a really only people in Missouri, only representation for the state of Missouri. Now, typically when they run this, there's people from Kansas City and from Springfield. But when talking to the gentleman that does the qualifying rounds, he said St. Louis was the only city that had their stuff together with COVID protocol to be able to run sort of like a prelim process to get to the World Championship stage. So that's a pretty big pat on the back for what we're doing right here.
Yep. Yeah, and from a PBS food perspective, even some PBS food shows are noticing St. Louis. So Steve Reichland from Project Fire was in St. Louis not too long ago for a good week and a half probably to film multiple episodes of his barbecue show that will be airing on 9 PBS come early spring. So keep an eye out for that. I mean, those kind of things don't happen by accident. Those kind of things happen because restaurateurs in St. Louis are talking, they're showing up on the national level, people are talking about them. So you'll see the guys from Pappy's, the guys from Sugar Fire. You'll see the Nalix from Balkan Treat Box are going to be on there with Steve Reichland. So it's so great to see these folks that are out there telling the St. Louis food story about not just toasted ravioli at Emo's Pizza anymore. They're hitting the national scene for hamburgers and for fine cuisine and for sushi and for Japanese cuisine and for, just
Bosnian cuisine.
Right? like all sorts of stuff. Like gone are the days of articles being written about, oh, look how funny St. Louis is with their pork steaks and gooey butter cake, which we love. No offense. Pork steaks and
the original, the OG.
The OGs. But St. Louis is, it started really with the barbecue and we're on the map with barbecue now, big time. And it's gone beyond that for all sorts of different cuisines and all sorts of chefs. And it's amazing to see. It's a proud thing for St. Louis to see. And I think walking out of 2021 in a time when restaurants struggled so much, to see St. Louis step up and represent on the restaurant scene in the way they did at the national level, within the media, within the community. I mean, restaurants struggled so bad and they kept on going. They supported the people that need it. You still today have restaurants that are supporting first responders, that are supporting healthcare workers, that are supporting teachers. I mean, restaurants are, so much is asked of restaurants and restaurateurs and restaurant staff and food staff, and they step up every time. And it's just amazing to see, and I think St. Louis is a fine example of that.
For sure. I couldn't have eaten my way through a better city, and I'm still exploring. So I'm excited. Now, let's not forget there was one thing new in 2021.
What's that?
This podcast.
Oh, the Chew and the Lou podcast. The biggest food story of the year.
No, I mean, I think that it doesn't go without saying, Joe. I think that this 2021 has been a remarkable year for Chew and the Lou, and just so exciting to continue to engage with the community. You know, there's so many people that engage with us through the Facebook groups or Instagram and our TikToks, and they're telling us of places to go. And that's what's exciting, because I love to find those little gems or tell those stories of the remarkable restaurateurs and their background of things that are happening.
You know, it's so fun, like, to be like picking up my kids from school now, and people are like, "Oh, Joe, hey, listen to the podcast, and me and my girlfriends are going out to dinner. There's going to be 8 of us. Where do you recommend to go?" Like, I get requested now so many times on recommendations. Like, even staff here at 9 PBS ask me.
Yeah.
Like, we have people that like are in charge of meetings and stuff. But now, whenever there's food, it's like, "Joe and Lydia, what should the staff all eat for lunch today when we have a meeting?" It's like, "Okay, we'll figure that out." Okay, sure. So it's very fun to be the people that are known for tasting delicious things.
It is. Well, and I love it because we get to hear the stories and share the stories. Like Four Brothers Meadery down in Festus.
And that's mead with a D, not a T, not meadery.
Yes,
Meadery. When she first said it, I was like, Four Brothers Meadery? What kind of meat?
Yes. But then, you know, learning about Vitali's Deli and their bakery and the long story of the family there. And then on top of it, you know, some of the stories that we've covered have been remarkable and exciting to share. So we just continue to thank and be thankful for all of the individuals involved with Chew and the Lou.
Yep. And we encourage you guys to keep sharing those stories, to join our Facebook group, share with us the pictures of the delicious things you're eating. Tell us where you're going, what you're eating, when you're eating it, how you're eating it, what you're eating it with, who you're eating it with, where you're eating it. We want to know all the things about what you're eating in St. Louis and why. That's what we're here. That's what we are tasked with, is helping you eat delicious things. Not physically, but we're not going to come and feed it into your mouth. But we can do maybe some restaurant meetups there in the future. Who knows? I know some people have suggested that before, that we should just be like, "Hey, Bowood by Niche, let's take your back room and have a Chew and the Lou meetup, and everyone come up and have dinner."
That would be exciting.
That would be very fun. We would overwhelm them, though, because there are thousands of you now that are Chew and the Lou fans.
We call you the Chew Crew.
The Chew Crew. We want to make T-shirts. It's on the list. Don't worry, guys.
We've got mugs in the works.
They're in the works.
Yeah, it'll be good. But, you know, with that, we're towards the end of the year. What is your New Year's resolution with food? Have you made one?
Have I made one?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
I have not yet, because it's not New Year's yet.
I'm
still enjoying my food before I start guilting myself about food.
You know what? Here's the thing. When you make a New Year's resolution, it doesn't mean to cut things out. It means
that's a whole other
of
podcast
exploring.
episode. Let's get through 2021 first, Lydia, before we
All right.
That's the next podcast episode.
That's true. Well, we're not asking you to cut anything out, just to enjoy yourself. Make some goals for new places to explore. Venture out. You know, if you're not a person that's, you know, really explored Asian cuisine, take a moment to explore, because there's lots of great places.
Yeah. And be proud of St. Louis, everybody.
Yeah.
It's a great town.
It is.
We love it. And this has been
the Chew and the Lou podcast.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Closing out 2021.
Thank you for listening to the Chew in the Loop podcast. Your hosts are Joe Prosperi
and Lydia Gwynn.
Our producer is Veronica Moheski, and this is a production of 9PBS in St. Louis. Follow us on your favorite social network and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.